In 1992, the film Candyman introduced horror fans to a new type of killer in a brand new setting. And while most slasher movies focused on white teens and white neighborhoods, Candyman would shatter that stereotype and feature a film with an African-American antagonist and an urban backdrop. Horror moviegoers would be introduced to a bloody hook and the projects of Cabrini Green. Me, myself, I always thought that this made sense. You know, you see so many movies with ghosts and paranormal stuff and all this take place in these beautiful neighborhoods that ain't never had a murder or never had even just somebody beat down, you know, no drugs. So you have all this, these movies take place in these places that ain't never had that level of pain and suffering. To me, it always made sense to have a movie somewhere like Cabrini Green or anywhere in the hood, because you know you got decades and decades of suffering. Years before the movie, in September of 1987 to be exact, a journalist, Steve Bogira, wrote an article on the Chicago Reader and weekly newspaper entitled "They Came In Through the Bathroom Mirror." The piece tells the story of Grace Abbott Holmes resident Ruthie Mae McCoy's mental health problems and her tragic death. The Grace Abbott homes were one of the many housing projects in Chicago located just a few miles from Cabrini Green. On the night of April 22nd, 1987, McCoy made a frantic 911 call to police saying that someone had thrown her cabinet down and came through her bathroom. Sadly, the dispatcher couldn't quite understand what Miss Coy was saying and labeled the call as a disturbance with another neighbor instead of a break-in attempt. Several minutes later, gunshots were heard and another neighbor phoned the police. What happened next is truly tragic. As police arrived on the scene, there was no answer at McCoy's door. The police called the project office to get a key for her apartment, but unfortunately it didn't fit the lock. With no other option besides breaking down the door, they decided to leave. 2 days later, police entered McCoy's apartment to find her dead, shot 4 times. Crime was not an unusual thing in the Grace Abbott homes. Cabrini Green and other Chicago housing projects, crime was the way of life over there. The Chicago PD would respond to a bunch of calls every day coming from those projects, and many of the crimes would receive national attention, including an incident that occurred on Friday, July 17, 1970. 2 officers, Patrolman Tony Rosado and Sergeant James Severin, were working a volunteer walk-the-talk shift, created by the police in hopes of improving relationships with the residents of Cabrini Green. Now, when they were both shot and killed from an apartment window. 4 people were rounded up and the 2 shooters were sentenced to life in prison. The reason given for the shooting was to seal a pact between 2 rival gangs and the housing project. Things continued to get worse at Cabrini as in 1981, violence in the project skyrocketed. 3 months saw 11 murders. In addition, there were many reports of rapes, robberies, and assaults during that time period. Something had to change, and in an effort to make that happen, Mayor Jane Byrne decided that the best option was to move into Cabrini herself to show the citizens Chicago's commitment to making the project safer. I'm gonna have to do a video talking about her doing that, a little later. But Byrne, along with her husbands and security guards, moved into Cabrini for about 3 weeks. And while she was there, the police upped their presence and raided the buildings, arresting criminals, seizing weapons, and more. And after an Easter celebration, she departed the projects to focus on other issues at the time. On October 13, 1992, just 3 days prior to Candyman's release date, a 7-year-old boy, Dantrell Davis, was murdered on his way to school. The bullet shot by a sniper was meant for a rival gang member, and the shooter was found and sentenced to 100 years in prison. The death of Davis made national headlines and helped unite the people of Cabrini Green, and even lead to a gang truce that lasted several years. It's important to note that this senseless killing is considered to be the straw that broke the camel's back. And in 1996, the federal government rolled out a new program called Hope 6, which was invented to revitalize high crime housing projects into mixed income developments. Cabrini was one of the sites selected to be demolished due to the severity of problems with crime, drug trafficking, and more. One final despicable act made headlines from Cabrini Green. On the morning of January 9, 1997, a 9-year-old girl walked from her friend's apartment to her grandmother's apartment, which was just floor 4s up. Unfortunately, the girl, who became known as Girl X, was she was sexually assaulted, choked, and had roach spray poured down her throat. The girl survived, but is now confined to a wheelchair and can't see or speak. Her attacker is spending the rest of his life in a federal prison for the heinous act. Yeah, it's a little worse than heinous, man. How did Candyman wind up filming in Cabrini Green, you may ask? In a 2015 interview with IAC, Candyman director Bernard Rose said that he went on a research trip to Chicago because he felt the film would be much better done in the U.S. The director was shown Cabrini Green by members of the Illinois Film Commission, and he spent some time there and realized that this was an incredible arena for a horror movie because it was a place of such palpable fear, whatever the freak palpable mean. Rose thought Cabrini Green to be a perfect place to film because people were actually afraid of driving past it, and there was such an aura of fear around the place. And I thought that it was really something interesting to look into because it's sort of kind of fear at the heart of modern cities. And obviously it's racially motivated, but more than that, it's poverty motivated. In the film Candyman, Virginia Madsen's character, Helen Lai, is researching urban legends and learns of Candyman. And Helen and her friend Bernadette Walsh, played by Cassie Lemons, learn that Ruthie Jean, a Cabrini Green resident, may have been killed by the Candyman. Obviously, the name Ruthie Jean was chosen to be as close as possible to Ruthie Mae, who was killed near Cabrini in '87. Helen and Ruthie take a trip to Cabrini Green to find out some additional information and take some photos. Now, upon walking up to the housing project, they are scoped out by residents of Cabrini Green and hassled for being there, and the duo take to the stairs and eventually stumble upon Ruthie Jean's apartment and find out that the mirror in the bathroom allows passage into the adjoining apartment. When entering, Helen finds a bizarre space with graffiti of Candyman and a bag of candy loaded with razor blades. She takes numerous photos before running out of film. Shortly after that, the duo meet Ruthie's neighbor, Annie Marie McCoy. See what they did there? Okay, so because there's Ruthie Ann, and I guess now there's Anna Marie, because Ruthie was really Ruthie Mae McCoy or something, okay? And her baby Anthony. Helen will return to Cabrini Green and meet a young boy named Jake, played by Daewon Guy, who gives Helen a tour of his neighborhood, and one of the places he shows her is an abandoned bathroom where Candyman attacked a young boy. Helen enters to take photos, and as she goes to leave, several gang members enter the stall, one of them holding a hook in his hand. This gang member has adopted the persona of Candyman and leads in the beating and robbing of Helen. This particular scene adds to the unnerving feel of the movie, as if there is never a safe place. You know, this shows about how things used to be. It used to be like when you was in the hood, man, and white folks came into the hood, or just people who didn't belong there, they was finna, like, something was finna happen to them. You know, nowadays, most just ride through the hood, well, certain hoods, not all of them, but, you know, man, at first it wasn't safe nowhere for no white folks. And I even remember before I left Chicago, 2009 or so, I remember around 08, 09, a white family moved in down the street from us into an apartment building, I believe. And that junk just blew my mind, like, wow, y'all some brave Y'all some brave some of my guns, boy. In the end of the film, some of the residents of Cabrini Green, led by Jake, the one guy, come together to set Candyman on fire. And as Candyman dies inside the bonfire structure, Helen musters up her courage for one final heroic act by crawling out of the fire with baby Anthony, reuniting the baby with his mother. The scene offers new hope for residents of Cabrini Green, as they would no longer have to live in fear of Candyman or his impersonators. Cabrini Green and other Chicago housing projects suffered many unfortunate injustices, causing them to be ostracized from the rest of the city. Many of these projects were underfunded and allowed to seep further into decay due to poor maintenance and repairs. In Cabrini Green, the lawn was even paved over with concrete to save on upkeep costs. You know, when they built these places supposed to be places to give people hope, to give people a good place to live, and but just a bunch of false promises, man. It was nothing more than a way to put people in a place where they would kill each other, steal from each other. It was made as to just get them out of our face, get them away from us, man. Let them go over there and do whatever with each other. Just keep them away from us. But anyway, things were really brought to an alarming level during the recession of the 70s when jobs became scarce. Because of the tough economic times, many businesses in the area of Cabrini Green shut down, with over 100,000 industrial jobs lost since 1972. Tenants in public housing seemed to be hit the worst as poverty rose and drug use spiked. With a lack of funding and lack of options, the residents of public housing, and in this case Cabrini Green, suffered, especially the children at one point. 70% of Cabrini Green residents were 16 or younger. With the lack of opportunities, it led some kids to join gangs or to get involved in the drug trade. It was with perhaps some of these kids that Candyman director Bernard Rose had to make a deal with to ensure a safe working environment while at Cabrini Green. Some gang members and local residents were included in the movie in the latter half of the quid pro quo. I don't know what that means. I know quid pro quo is like when lawyers work with people for free or something. So I don't know what the heck they saying right there. Candyman was a success. Well, I hope that they gave them folks some money, because I know quid pro quo would mean free. So I'm going to have to look into this deal and see what that's about. Candyman was a success on multiple levels in a genre dominated by mostly Caucasian actors. Candyman delivered an African-American slasher who would stand shoulder to shoulder with fellow slashers like Michael, Jason, and Freddy. It also delivered a more realistic type of film as it blurred the lines of fact and fiction, using Cabrini as its backdrop. Even more, it proved that horror was a universal thing, not pertaining to any race, location, or gender. Yeah.